Russians do a revenge airstrike against Ukraine, while the Ukrainians might have just shot down a Su-35 with one of their F-16s. But we'll talk about this as well as about anything else that has happened along the front lines and behind them in this situation report about the war in Ukraine. The Russians conducted the second biggest strike of the war against the Ukrainians in the night from the 5th to the 6th of June. 407 drones were used, 368 of them were intercepted. 6 Iskander ballistic missiles were used, 4 of them intercepted this time. 36 Kh-101 were used, the cruise missiles that are launched from those bombers. The Ukrainians say they managed to shoot down 30 of them, and 2 Iskander K cruise missiles were used. Both of them were intercepted as well. Interesting here that the strike was the Russians were using a Tupolev 160 for the strike, likely because not enough Tupolev 95 were ready for operation, but this is probably more due to maintenance cycles than due to the lack of planes in general. As we've seen, the Ukrainians have struck several Tupolev 95 that were ready for operation, so others were in their scheduled maintenance cycle. The Russians will be able to fix that to a degree that they can use only Tupolev 95 in the future. This time, though, the Ukrainian strike forced the Russians to use Tupolev 160, which I think have been used so far in the war, but very, very rarely. We switch to the Ukrainians because they managed to strike back themselves. The Ukrainians have struck the Engels Air Force Base and the Diaghilevo Air Force Base as well. In both Air Force bases, they hit something, according to reports. Air fuel depots were struck. No planes, no pilots being reported as hit. In the airport of Bryansk, there were explosions as well, and here the Russians confirm that a Mi-8 helicopter was destroyed and a Mi-35 was damaged. The Ukrainians also struck bitumen tanks in the town of Kostrovo. With drones. I think it's some kind of refinery building. I'm not 100% sure though. But the most interesting part is what we have Fighter Bomb, the Russian mill blogger here, confirming that a Sukhoi-35 was shot down. The rumors are right now that it was done by an F-16. Now, this is not fully confirmed as of yet. We'll have to see in the next few days, because I'm pretty sure the Ukrainians will claim that it was an air-to-air kill if it was one. Otherwise, it might have been surface-to-air missile, maybe another Sambush, but we'll see in the future. Let's switch to the developments along the front line, and here we start off in Sumy. Here in Sumy, the Russians keep advancing. The Russians have taken the town of Kindravka. We have a geolocation here. This is still in the eastern part of town, but if we look at the pro-Ukrainian deep state map, they give full control over Kindravka, and obviously there we do not believe the geolocations, but we believe the site that admits defeat, and thus Kindravka is under Russian control. The Russians also took the town of Oleksivka, again confirmed by the deep state map, and we have the town of Andrivka also being confirmed as under control by the Russians, as we have geolocations directly to the south of it, indicating that the Ukrainians have crossed through out of Andrivka. The Russians also took the town of Yablunivka. We have geolocation of this as well, and here we see them in the center of Yablunivka. Likely the whole of Yablunivka is taken. The Russians also advanced to the east of it, here almost to the road here, roughly to this point. So as of now, Yablunivka is probably under Russian control. If not, at the very least, it's in the gray zone as well. The Russians also managed to advance west and east of Loknia. Here, this area was more or less turned over, confirmed as under Russian control by the Ukrainians. So the Russians keep advancing in this area. That's it from Sumy, from the region here. We switch to Kharkiv, and there's nothing to report here. I have no confirmation of changes on the ground, so we go directly to the Eastern Front. Here the Russians have advanced north of Dvorichna. Not a big advance, but an advance nonetheless. We have a geolocation directly north of it. This should be more or less at this point here. The Russians also have entered the town of Krydrashivka, directly south of it, in the direction of Kupiansk. As you can see here, Deep State map adds it to the gray zone. We know that the Russians were inside of it when they were struck by the Ukrainians in the geolocated position here. The Russians have also advanced in Selena Dolina. That's down here. We have geolocations of this area between Selena and Dolina and Kolodyazy. We have it here to the southeast of it, fairly close to it, and between Selena Dolina and Kolodyazy. So roughly this area here is more or less confirmed to be in the gray zone as of now. That was it north of the river Seversky Donetsk. South of it, I have nothing until we reach the Toretsk area. And here in Toretsk, we have the Russians now being on the northern side of that lake. And this is here. So we had Russian positions all over this area. To this point, there's no confirmation that the Russians managed to consolidate their positions, but we see that the Russians are at a position where we have not seen them before at all. To the west of it, the Russians have advanced inside of Yablunivka. We have geolocations of this as well here on the western part before they have been here in the last SITREP. Now we have them here in the south as well. So the Russians slowly creep into Yablunivka over the past few days. The Ukrainians are confirmed, though, to have taken back some territory in Malinivka. There's a geolocation of the Ukrainians being attacked in these buildings here, which are on the southwestern area of Malinivka. As we can see here, there's definitely Ukrainian presence in here. The Ukrainians also advanced in the area of Svirove. Here we have a Russian mill blogger confirming that a Ukrainian counterattack there was successful and that the Ukrainians have advanced. To the west of it, the Russians have advanced into the town of Novoserhivka. We have that here, and it's actually up to this position here. So roughly a 500-meter advance over the contested area, probably in reality a bigger advance. The Russians have at least in the temporary been in Novoserhivka. We have that confirmed as of now. The Russians have also entered the town of Oleksivka once again. Here we had them recently in the southeastern corner, and now we have them a little further in this fresh geolocation. I cannot confirm yet whether they gained a permanent foothold, but we see them advancing here in this direction. The Russians have advanced quite sizably to the west of it. We have them in Komar. That is a fresh geolocation at this point, that they are in the southern part of Komar, probably having taken it. Before that, it was confirmed that the Russians have very likely taken the town of Fedorivka. We have, as we can see here on the Deep State map, the confirmation that the Deep State map gave the southern part of Fedorivka towards the Russians, and these geolocations were in the northern part. So Fedorivka is probably now under Russian control, and the Russians have already entered Komar here as well. We have the Russians striking the Ukrainians in an area here close to Orikhiv. We have the Russians south striking Ukrainians south of Huliapole. This is here at the railroad. The Ukrainians were geolocated here, and the Russians have also struck them southwest of Mirne at these lakes here. In this gray zone here, the Ukrainians seem to have advanced as well. The Ukrainians have also advanced. No, that was it for today. I'm sorry. Generally, we have claims that I have not found. I didn't have the time to search it more thoroughly, though. But here, Army Informed claims that NATO said the Russians have lost 1,140 men per day right now. 975 of those are KIA, which is an unheard of number. That's what, roughly 80%. The high KIA rate seems extraordinarily high, but regarding how the attacks are currently being done with mostly infantry over a wide contested area that is dominated by drones, that a huge number of them have no chance of survival, especially as striking wounded personnel is fairly common on both sides. That seems to be at least not completely impossible. The Russians have, in 2024, conquered 0.4% of Ukraine, and in 2025, to this day, they have conquered 0.2 additional percent of Ukraine, indicating while I'm giving you name after name of town where the Russians have entered, we are still looking at a fairly slow advance, especially regarding the size of the country. Nevertheless, the Ukrainians believe that Russia plans to advance a lot more. Even though the Russians barely advance at all right now under heavy losses, these are, according to the Ukrainians, the plans for the Russians for the next year and a half. First, they want to occupy the rest of Donetsk and Luhansk. Then, until the end of the year, until the end of 2025, they want to occupy the western bank of the Dnipro River and advance into Dnipro Oblast as well as establish a buffer zone along the whole border to then, until the middle of 2026, take over the whole country east of the Donetsk River, as well as the majority of Mykolaiv and Odessa oblasts as well, and thus obviously making a connection here to Transnistria as well. This is, according to the Ukrainians, the Russian plans. It seems extremely unlikely right now that the Russians should be able to achieve this. In troop generation, we have news. The Ukrainians said in the past year they are testing. For the past year, they're testing an interceptor drone that is capable of intercepting Shahid drones. According to them, 160 successful intercepts were done so far, but according to claims, it's apparently still in a testing period. In the political sphere, the Russian central bank has reduced the interest rate to 20% from 21%, likely after pressure from the Kremlin. The high interest rate was meant to combat inflation, which is not suddenly shrinking, but at the same time, the high interest rate made it impossible for private financing for anything else in the economy. So this is likely now a measure by the Russian government to reduce interest and thus stimulate the economy at the cost of increased inflation. In international support, there's going to come additional aid. The United Kingdom will invest 350 million pounds into the Ukrainian defense. It's translated or converted, it's almost $500 million US. That the British want to deliver 100,000 drones in 2025. And this year, they say they've already delivered 140,000 rounds of artillery. An additional 300 million will be used for training of Ukrainian soldiers inside of Ukraine. And then we have something interesting from the German Minister of Defense. He said the first jointly funded missiles, long-range systems, could be available in a few weeks. Now, obviously, that means it can't be anything that was freshly developed. There's still some hope that this might be some crypto talk of the Taurus cruise missiles soon being employed, but we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this. The Dutch have promised 400 million euros in aid. That's going to be used for boats of various kinds, for naval drones and other weapon systems. Luxembourg is saying that they're going to increase their aid by 50% to the end of the year. The Belgians have pledged 1 billion euros yearly for Ukraine as well for the next few years. Canada is pledging 45 additional million for drones, electronic warfare, and APCs. Norway is going to send Ukraine 7 billion euros this year as a country of 5.5 million. So the Norwegians are a very rich country, but at the same time, it needs to be acknowledged that they are using that wealth to a vast degree to help the Ukrainians. 700 million are going to be spent of these in the Ukrainian defense industry, and in total, Denmark, Sweden, Canada, Norway, and Iceland have pledged another 428 million euros for the Ukrainian defense. But that was it with today's SITREP. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment if you have something to add. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. A lot of you, or some of you, have written that you haven't seen me for months. Now, the SITREPs aren't for everyone, so a lot of people stop watching SITREPs. If you are one of those who like the SITREPs, you need to click the bell icon, because the algorithm will otherwise no longer show me to you. YouTube sees my videos popping up and only 20% of my viewers clicking them. This means that they think the videos are worse than usual and thus show it to less people. So if you are one of those who likes the SITREPs, you need to make sure that you're subscribed and hit the bell icon. Otherwise, you won't see it. For the rest, it's probably enough if you don't do this, because if I have a special video that is gaining a lot of attraction, it's still going to pop up, but probably only then. But that was it from me for today. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll be back.